Happy Friday, friends. I hope you're having a good day. You guys have been working so hard this week. I just want to say keep it up. I've got Bodie here with me. We're going to continue chapter 3 from the Lemonade Wars. What are you doing? What are you doing? He's trying to find treats. If you remember, this was the joint venture chapter where Scott and Evan started their lemonade stand on the corner. They had sold 14 cups at 50 cents a piece. So that's where we had left off on that problem. All right, so we're gonna finish this chapter. But how was he supposed to solve that? That was double-digit multiplication. There was no way he could do a problem like that. And besides, some of those 14 people had bought refills, but used the same cup. How many? Evan didn't know. Still, he knew they'd made a pretty good amount of money. That estimate was close enough for him. How much do you think we could make if we sold it all? Asked Scott. I don't know, maybe 20 bucks? That sounded high, even to him, but Evan was an optimist. If you're an optimist, you look on the bright side, you're positive. Is this putting you to sleep? Do you really think? Both boys looked in the cooler. 3 pitchers were empty. Only about a half a pitcher was left. You were pouring these cups too full, said Scott. We should have poured less in each one. You're the one who brought the huge plastic cups. You could fit a gallon in one of those, said Evan. Besides, I'm not gonna be chintzy. Chintzy means like cheap. They're paying a whole half a buck for it. Some deserve a full cup. And anyway, we can just go home and make more. My mom has cans of lemonade in the freezer. So go home and make some, said Scott. Oh yes, your majesty, oh high commander. What do you think? Who do you think should make it? I think you should make it because I'm chillin', said Scott, leaning back in his chair with a stupid grin on his face. Evan knew he was just joking, but this was exactly why he didn't like Scott. He was always thinking of himself, always looking for some way to come out on top. And if they were playing knockouts, Scott always came up with a new rule that would help him win. If they were doing an assignment together, Scott always figured out how to divide it so that he had less work to do. The kid was a weasel. No two ways about it. But everyone else was out of town. Evan didn't want to spend the day alone, and Jesse was on his poop list, as Mom called it when the dog did something he wasn't supposed to do. Evan might never play with Jesse again. Evan crossed the street and went into the house. He was surprised to find that there were no more cans of lemonade in the freezer. I wonder why. Wow, there'd been so many this morning. Luckily, there was a can of grape juice in the freezer and a bottle of ginger ale in the fridge. It'll work, he thought. People just want a cold drink. They don't care if it's lemonade. He mixed up the grape juice in the sink. The fruit flies were more out of control than ever, thanks to the lemonade the boys had dribbled on the countertop. As you know, it gets really, really sticky. Evan swatted a couple, but most of them drifted out of his reach and settled on the fruit bowl. He wished his mother believed in the chemical warfare. But for Mrs. Trisky, it was all natural or nothing, usually nothing. When he went back outside to the lemonade stand, Evan noticed that the last pitcher was turned upside down on the cooler. What do you think, Scott? Oh, come on, Scott, he said. What? It was hot, and you said we could always make more. Yeah, well, we didn't have as much in the house as I thought. We got grape juice and ginger ale. I hate ginger ale, said Scott. I wouldn't give you a penny for it. It turned out that a lot of people felt the same way. Business was definitely slower. The day got hotter. The sun was beating down on them ferociously. It was easy to imagine the sidewalk crackling open and swallowing them whole. Good analogy. Fanning himself, Evan asked, how much money do you think we could make? I don't know, said Scott, pushing his baseball cap over his eyes. I mean, on a hot day like this, Evan said, slightly adding the words, or tomorrow, if we sold 8 pitchers of lemonade, what do you think we'd each make? 8 pitchers? I don't know, Scott shook his head. His baseball-capped face wedged back and forth. Too hot for math, and it's summer. Evan pulled the red pen out of his pocket and started to write down in the palm of his hand. 8 times, question mark. 8 times 50 divided by 2, question mark. You can see his writing. That doesn't seem right. Jessie would know. She'd do the math in 1 second. Evan capped the pen and jammed it into his pocket. But I bet it's a lot, said Evan. I bet on a hot day like this, we could actually make some real money in the lemonade business. Yeah, said Scott. Then we'd be rich, and I can get an Xbox, the new one, with dual controllers. I'd get an iPod, said Evan. He'd been saving for over a year, but every time he had some money to put away, well, it just disappeared, like the $10 from his grandma. She'd even written a card. There's a little something to help you get that music you think you want. But the money was gone. He treated Paul and Ryan to slices of pizza at Townhouse. It had been fun. That would be so great to listen to music whenever I wanted, said Evan. I could tune you out, he added in his head. They sat in silence, feeling the heat suck away every bit of their energy. Evan was hatching a plan. The heat wave was supposed to last at least 5 more days. If he and a friend, not Scott, set up a lemonade stand every day for the next 5 days, he'd definitely have enough money to buy an iPod. He imagined himself wearing it as he walked to school, wearing it on the playground. Hey, Megan, yeah, that's an iPod. Sweet, huh? Wearing it in class when the teacher droned about fractions and percents. Nah. But it would be so cool. At least there would be one thing that didn't totally stink about going back to school. After 2 hours, they decided to call it quits. Sales had dropped off fast and then stopped altogether. Hey, did you notice something? Asked Evan, stacking the chairs. What? Said Scott. When we started the stand, most of our business came from that direction. He pointed down the street toward the curve in the road. But after an hour, not one person who walked past us from that direction bought a cup. Not one. They all said, no thanks, and kept walking. What do you think? I don't know, said Scott. Boy, you're a real go-getter, said Evan. You know that? Scott socked him in the chest, but Evan defended and knocked Scott's cap off. While Scott was scrambling for his hat, Evan said, just hang here for a minute, okay? And set off down the street. As he rounded the curve, he knew why business had fallen off so badly.